Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm now in the basement of the monastery, moving here and there just to keep it interesting, I think. I've been in email contact with someone who's asking questions about the path of devotion. As you may know, if you're a Vedantist, that basically the sages over the thousands of years have found four paths that have led to the realization of the highest truth, that oneness with the beloved. And a lot of times the bhaktis really take it over the head from everyone else as being the sentimental, the weepy, emotional types, and and talk of it being somewhat of a weaker path or a less dignified path. And I want to kind of address that this morning in some ways, in some of the things that Sri Ramakrishna has said about the path. He was quite adamant, actually. I'm just going to go ahead and read because he can say it better than I can. He says, for the Kali Yuga, the path of devotion is especially a good one. One can realize God through devotion too. As long as one is conscious of the body, one is also conscious of objects. Form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. These are the objects. It is extremely difficult to get rid of the consciousness of objects, and one cannot realize I am he as long as one is aware of objects. Now that's a tall order. How can one not be aware of objects, of a world that's basically divided up into its component little tiny pieces everywhere, some that we like, some that we don't like, some that we're running toward, and some we're running away from. And really the goal in spiritual life is to see the oneness, to find that absolute contentment in the moment, where your mood, dependency, and disposition are not dependent upon the conditions or circumstances of the moment. That you're free, that you're absolutely free. Not that you're free to do whatever you want, but you're free from want itself, free from desire. He goes on to explain, that the other three paths. There's the path of knowledge, which is just that inward searching for who am I, who's asking these questions. There's that path, the Raja Yoga, the royal path, the path of meditation, and that's the idea of mind control, slowing down the mind, controlling the mind, so that you get it clear like a lake, so that you can see the bottom clearly without distortion. So that means the absence of thought, as it were, so that when one thought ends before the next thought begins, in that little space in between, God can be seen very clearly, that it's the mind itself and the distortion of mind, all of your desires and attachments and aversions and attractions that are causing you not to be able to see the oneness of things. And that path, it takes an enormous amount of discipline, an enormous amount of practice. And he goes on to say about it, he says, he gives some conditions. He says, worship is not accepted by the gods unless the mantras are recited correctly. One must perform sacrifice, worship, and so on, according to all of the scriptural injunctions. But where is the time in this age to perform the Vedic rituals? Therefore, in this age, the path of devotion prescribed by Narada is best. The path of karma is very difficult. Karma becomes a cause of bondage unless it is performed in a spirit of detachment. Further, the life of man nowadays depends on food. He has no time to observe these rituals enjoined by the scriptures. The patient dies if he tries to cure his fever by taking the decoction of herbs prescribed by the orthodox native physicians. Therefore, he should take a modern fever mixture. So he's saying all of that. He's saying, if you're going to take the path of jnana, all the paths lead to this highest realization. And usually the path is chosen sort of on your disposition in a conversation with your teacher, with your guru, the one that you're most suited for. But Ramakrishna is saying very clearly that in this age, the path of devotion is the fastest and most effective path. And what is the path of devotion? It's seeing God, a personal God, who manifests in a form like Jesus, a form like Buddha, a form like Rama or Krishna or Ramakrishna. That through the love that's engendered in this relationship, that's grown in this relationship by a slow maturing in the understanding of the nature of love that your chosen ideal has for you, and the amount of grace that God has to inspire you, to lift you up, to forgive you, as it were. That idea of forgiveness is interesting because it's not so much that God has to forgive you. You really have to forgive yourself so that you can move on. You have to be able to let go of things and move on. And sometimes we need a higher permission than our own to do that. And God has provided that way for us. So he's saying here that in this modern time, you know, for the amount of practice, the amount of time, and the support structures of society that are necessary to support sadhus who are spending all their time in meditation and practice, and to be in such a remote place that really the world of men, the world of objects, is not constantly tearing down the progress that you're making. He says in this modern day, it's just not conducive for that. You know, there are still some heroes here and there who will be able to traverse that path and do it even in these modern times. But he's saying, if you want to know God, if you want that vision of the divine, the fastest and most effective way today is love, is to touch the feet of the divine through love. The path of bhakti, which is devotion, the path of bhakti is actually very interesting in the fact that the path and the goal are the same, that unconditioned love is the practice and the goal, you know, for us. And so love God. You know, don't be afraid to be in love with God. Don't be afraid to believe in God. In the end, yes, the final realization is that there's one without a second, which means that God alone exists and everything else is illusory, like a dream. You know, and we have to realize that we are the dreamer and not the dreamed. That we are the universal mind, you know, like in a dream you are the subset of the dream. You believe yourself to be just a perspective in the dream, but that entire dream is your own head. You know, that entire dream is you. You are equally everything in that dream, but while you're dreaming, you believe you're only a single character or a point of perspective in that dream. In reality, you are the dreamer. All of it is contained within you. And our goal is to know that, to realize that. And the way that that dream has been established, it seems, is that pure love, unconditioned, infinite, and readily available to all, is the fastest path in this age to tread, to touch the feet of our beloved. So even though these days the idea of God is being treated as rather small-minded and sentimental, don't be afraid. What does that have to do with anything? Fall in love with the divine. In the end, the riches, the beautiful experience of life as one is worth every bit of it. So that's my encouragement today. Spend some time with the beloved. Grow your notion of God to be all-encompassing, all-loving, all-powerful. Grow your notion of God to be bigger than a man in the sky, to be bigger than somebody pointing fingers and making judgments and calculating who's winning and who's losing. Grow an image of the beloved that's bigger than that. That's a beginner's version of the divine. That's a beginner's version of God. And it's proper in its time. So forgive me if I'm making it sound like one is better than the other. In their time and place, each is appropriate. So encourage that in yourself. Be bold, be sacrificial, live your life fully, and know that you are on the fastest path of love.